What do you think about when you hear the words mental illness? A lot of the words and images we associate with mental illness come from popular culture. Things like advertising, movies, TV shows, graphic novels, and video games. Problem is, these words and images are not always positive, or even accurate. And what's worse, these wrong ideas can end up influencing how we relate to people who do have a mental illness. You've learned about prejudice and discrimination in school. Usually we link them to a race or religion, but they can also apply to people with a mental illness. The best way to fight discrimination and prejudice is to separate the fact from the fiction, and that's exactly what this program is about. To set the record straight, we're going to start with a visit to the doctor's office to learn about mental illness and how it's treated. Then, we're going to talk to some kids who know what it's like to live each day with a mental illness. Finally, we're going to sit in on a classroom where kids are discussing misconceptions about mental illness and ways we can change the view of mental illness for the better. Mental illness is not one thing, but a whole range of disorders, some more serious than others. Because science is just beginning to understand the brain and how it works, it can be hard to identify a specific mental disorder. You can get an X-ray to see a broken arm, but there isn't a medical test for mental illness. Diagnosis comes from observing, listening, and asking questions. That's exactly what Dr. Hamilton Warren does.
They come in telling me, well, I'm here because I'm crazy. Which crazy, I don't know really what that means and what's normal. And then crazy is more of a, I think, a Hollywood term. A lot of people before were put in your insane asylums or institutionalized and definitely never talked about. I mean, those were family members that basically were not seen anymore. But the medicines now, just over the last 10 to 15 years, there's definitely been remarkable progress made, and there's a lot more options and a lot less side effects than the ones that were available 40 years ago. If the child with the mental illness is wanting to share it and is comfortable sharing it, then, and they feel like the person they're sharing with, can handle it, is going to be supportive, then I don't think there's anything, wrong with that. I think there are friends who, maybe they didn't know their friend was on medication and want to know why, but, and I think it's normal to ask, but at the same time, if the friend doesn't want to talk about it, being able to respect that. I recently saw a kiddo who was, had Tourette's disorder. So he has, and he has ADHD, OCD, and tics. And his mom, they brought him in because she wants him treated for depression. And when I asked him, what do you want treatment for? He's like, well, I want my tics gone. And she's like, what? I mean, she was like, but you're depressed. You need to get better. And he's like, well, yeah, but my tics bother me. I don't like it because other kids notice them, and that's what's affecting his mood. And so, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're treating his tics. And his mood's actually getting better. Everybody's going through puberty. It's hard. Some of the kids are gonna be bigger than the other kids. Some kids are shorter than others, and there's a tendency to make fun of each other and belittle each other just because we're different. And I think it's sad. It's like, bullying somebody because they have diabetes or bullying somebody because they have high blood pressure. I mean, no one signs up to get, hi, I wanted depression this morning. That wasn't their dream. I think just being more tolerant of each other, of the differences. I mean, if you talk with someone who has Asperger's disorder or, a milder autism spectrum disorder, they're actually pretty cool. I mean, I crack up every time I see someone because they come and tell me everything I need to know about Tyrannosaurus Rex or, insects and how they view the world. the simple things in life just get magnified for a lot of those kids, and it's stuff that I think, your normal average person just forgets. The smell of the rain, the sound of the wind, all those things we just take for granted. And sometimes if we just would look through the eyes of the other person, or just listen and not judge, we could, gain so much.
Okay, so we learned that mental illness can be identified and treated. That's important to remember. But what's it like to have a mental illness? Emily, Eric, and Hope have all been diagnosed with one or more mental disorders. Not that long ago, they were in middle school. And like most of you, they wanted to do well in school, chill with friends, and have fun. But as you'll learn, it wasn't always easy.
My mental diagnoses are ADD, OCD, bipolar, and Tourette syndrome. And ADD is attention deficit disorder, OCD is obsession compulsive disorder, bipolar is extreme mood swings, and Tourette syndrome is where you have to either say something out loud or do like a twitch.
I've been diagnosed with several disorders over the years. I've been diagnosed with ADHD, bipolar, schizophrenia, SAD, which is seasonal affect disorder.
I was diagnosed as having ADHD, ADD subtype when I was in, I'm not sure, 5th or 6th grade.
I had issues, maintaining friendships. I had issues getting along with peers. Just overall, I had a very rough time socially when I was younger.
It takes me a really, really long time to get my homework done, and so I would stay I'd only have 3 periods or so. Right now I only have 2 periods in high school still. But just getting everything done and trying to make it through.
I had to stay after school every day to get the teacher and my father to help me to just finish it and get it done.
Every day was you have to take these pills, and in my mind it was I have to take these pills to be normal, which in my mind was I don't want to do this. I just want to be a normal kid.
For a while there, I wasn't very fond taking medication. For a long time, I didn't like doing it. I didn't want to do it. But I realized when I'm off my medication, I'm quite a bit different person than I am when I'm on it. And I realized it's just a way to keep myself healthy.
I'd like to be able to just focus on things naturally, but I can't, and the medication helps me do the things that I need to do in my life so I can focus on the things that I want to do.
Middle school, I was kind of afraid to talk to anybody about my mental illnesses there for a long, long time. There was a few people I told about it, and they didn't really react as well as I hoped they would.
My friends are pretty cool people. I can dress like this around them, and they're just like, hey, that's really cool, where'd you get that,
The first person that I got really, really deep into was my very, very good friend Harrison. I was in a relationship with him at the time, and I want to explain to him what I've truly been to, because most people I say, I have these disorders, so please excuse me if mid-sentence I go, ooh, butterfly. But I really got into deep conversation with him, and he was like, oh, I understand.
I have a friend who has anxiety disorder, and sometimes she won't be able to go to school because she's so afraid of leaving the house. And people can't really understand why that is.
One day I forgot to I ran out of my 10X, which is my Tourette's pill, and my shoulders were going like this, all the time, and I was coughing, and this girl was she was like, why are you doing that? I was like, doing what? She was like, that. And I was like, it's Tourette's. And she was like, Tourette's, whatever. And it was, oh man, I just bawled that day. And I know that if people don't understand ADD, Tourette's, everything, they won't know what to think of it.
When I was younger, I did receive some conflict, with other people just saying, oh, you take medication or something like that. I take several different types of medications, even today I do, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Yeah, some people look at you a little bit, some people, if you don't explain yourself maybe all the way, may look at you a little bit differently, but that's them. I mean, don't worry about it.
Some of the other people were not as accepting as my friends are, which is hard because, everyone likes to be accepted and to feel like their peers like them.
You see kids with, have Down syndrome, or something like that, and, you don't make fun of them, because you feel really bad. Why won't you do that for kids that aren't as noticeable?
No matter who you are, if you don't have mental illness or if you do, people always think about you different ways. I just say, roll with the punches, do what you gotta do. And if somebody doesn't like you for whatever reason, that's them, that's not you. You can't change anybody else but yourself.
Friends are really important. And it's just important to be there if, the person ever needs them. And to be open and willing to talk about whatever they need to talk about.
As a goal of mine would just be to make a difference, for other youth and people that like me that have had issues.
I want to be an advocate for kids with ADD and Tourette's, so I can make awareness and hopefully just change the world.
Emily, Eric, and Hope are real success stories. Like people who work out at a gym to improve their physical health, every day they do something positive for their mental health, and it shows. So we've heard from a doctor and from kids who live full lives despite having a mental illness. Now we're going to hear from you. This 8th grade health class at Meridian Middle School is discussing mental illness. Let's listen in and hear what the students have to say.
How many of you guys know someone with a mental illness, whether it's ADHD, ADD, depression? Lots. Yeah.
One of my siblings has ADD, and sometimes she can, if she isn't taking her medication, sometimes she can be a little off, and some people think she's weird, but we still love her.
My cousin has OCD, and so if you walk into a room, everything has a particular order. And if you knock something over, move something ever so slightly, she'll freak out. She'll start yelling and she'll know exactly where everything is.
Right.
I have a best friend. When I first met her, she has ADHD. And when I first met her, I thought she was one of the weirdest girls I'd ever met because she didn't take medicine or anything. She wasn't diagnosed yet. And when she got really, really, really hyper, she had to run around in circles to try to calm down a little bit. And she didn't get good grades or anything. And before I became a friend or before I found out she had ADHD, I always thought she was just really, really strange. And then she finally got diagnosed and she got a medicine, and now she just has a lot better control.
And what do you think about it now, knowing more?
I felt really bad for how I treated her because I wasn't very nice to her when I didn't know that she had ADHD, and made me feel really guilty.
Good point.
I have ADHD, and usually when I'm off my medication, I'm really hyper and I can't pay attention to anything.
Yeah. So, your impression of mental illness before we kind of got started, what was your impression about? Hey.
I just thought they were a bunch of brats.
Okay, so.
I was annoyed with them because I thought that they could control it,
okay.
And then they didn't, and so it's kind of annoying.
What do you think that you can do or that we can do kind of as a group to eliminate some of the stereotypes that go along with ADD and ADHD or someone with a mental illness?
Well, you could have people that have the actual diseases talk to other people about what they have and tell them that really it's not their fault that they have it and they can't control it. That you either have to go through therapy or take meds to get it under control.
You can just simply try to learn more about it, because then once you can identify with it, you have a little bit more sympathy for the people who have to go through it.
I know that when I watched that movie of the people with mental illnesses that had specific personal stories about it, I was much more sympathetic of people like that because I knew how much they went through and how they couldn't control it.
Yeah.
In my 8th period class, my sister's always laughing when the kids next door will start screaming and stuff. And I'll always be like, why are you laughing at them? How would you like if someone was laughing at you if you had an issue? It's not fair for them.
I would just treat them as a normal person like everybody else and be nice to them and just not think of them as having a mental illness, just like being as everyone else.
Like, I would kind of look at it as if how I would feel if someone was making fun of me because of my mental illness, so I would treat them the way I would want to be treated.
Don't judge them just because they seem different. Like, if you have someone with a mental illness in your class, you should just accept them from who they are and try to get to know them.
Those kids have the right idea. Learning about mental illness, separating the fact from the fiction, is the best way to fight prejudice and end stigma. Well, it's time to go. But before I do, there are 3 things about mental illness I want you to remember. 1, mental illness is real. 2, it's more common than most people believe. And 3, it can be treated. And how should you treat someone who has a mental illness? That's easy. Just be a friend.